You've walked past one and kept going. Second floor of a farmhouse built in 1890, and there's a door set into the wall with nothing behind it. No balcony, no stairs, no landing. Just a 12-foot drop onto the lawn. You didn't question it, nobody points it out, but these doors sit in old houses across Vermont, Utah, Pennsylvania, and most of New England, and every single one of them opens into empty air. Builders kept installing them. Owners kept not using them. Nobody wrote down why, so who decided a house needed a door that goes nowhere? Here's the answer, up front. Every one of these doors was functional the day it went in. The door's not the strange part. The thing it opened onto is what vanished. A porch, a staircase, a second-floor landing where you could stand and look at your own fields. Somebody took a saw to it in 1940 and never touched the door itself. So you're not looking at a mistake. You're looking at a leftover, a door that outlived its floor. Start with the most common cause. Wood porches rot. A two-story farmhouse in Vermont around 1885 often had a full-width porch, and sometimes a second porch stacked right on top of it, reached by that exact door. Preservation carpenters who restore these houses across New England say the upper porch was usually the first thing to fail. Exposed to snow, cheap to build, expensive to keep. When it sagged, the owner tore it off and capped the posts. The door stayed. Nobody frames a whole wall around a door just to brick it up. So it hangs there, 12 feet up, remembering a floor that rotted off decades before you were born. Then there's the outside staircase. Plenty of these homes had an exterior stair running up the back wall to a second-floor door. A separate entrance for a hired hand, a boarder, a mother-in-law who wanted her own key. Architectural historians who catalog vernacular farmhouses point out that splitting a house into two rentable halves was normal income for a rural family in the 1800s. Take out the tenant, take out the stairs, and you've got a door opening onto nothing. The stairs were the temporary part. Weird, right? The door felt permanent. The way up didn't. Here's a stranger one. Sometimes the door was for a room that never existed. A builder frames an opening because the owner plans to add a wing next spring. A bedroom, a summer kitchen, another whole L off the side. Then the money runs out. Or the owner dies. Or a war takes the sons. The addition never gets built, and the door just waits for a room that's still technically coming. Field surveys of New England dells turn up plenty of these. A finished doorway staring at a blank gable, framed for a future that quietly got canceled. And here's where it gets stupid. A lot of these upper doors were never meant for people at all. On farmhouses and barns, the second-floor door was a freight hatch. You'd back a wagon underneath, swing a beam out over the door on a pulley, a block and tackle, and hoist hay, grain, or feed straight up into the loft. Agricultural building surveys describe these as hay doors or loading doors, standard on working farms into the early 1900s. The drop you're scared of was the whole point. You weren't supposed to walk out. Sacks were. Now factor in the hill. A house built into a New England slope can have a second floor that's ground level on the uphill side. Somebody cut into the bank, graded the yard, and 100 years later the dirt's been moved, the driveway got lowered, and a door that used to open onto solid ground now opens onto a drop. The house didn't move. The ground did. Regional preservation groups documenting hillside farmhouses note this one constantly, tiny. The grade gets recut for a modern driveway and strands a perfectly sensible door in midair. Now, you've probably heard the spooky version, the coffin door. The story goes that these were built so pallbearers could carry a coffin straight out of an upstairs bedroom, or so a dead person's spirit could leave without haunting the living. Cool, mystery solved. Except folklorists who actually trace this stuff can't find a single builder's record, contract, or period account backing it up. It's a tale people tell about the door after the porch is already gone. A ghost explanation for a carpentry leftover. Funerals in the 1800s happened in the parlor, on the ground floor, near the front door, for the obvious reason that a coffin plus a narrow farmhouse staircase is a bad combination. The coffin door is folklore. The rotted porch is the receipt. Vermont has its own version people love. The witch window, a window set at a 45-degree tilt, slotted sideways into a gable wall. The legend says a crooked frame keeps witches out because a witch on a broom can't fly through a slanted window. The boring truth, according to Vermont preservation records, is that it's a standard rectangular window rotated to fit a tight sliver of wall left over where a lean-to addition met the main roof. Same pattern as the door. A practical fix, then a spooky story bolted on later once nobody remembered the fix. Out in Utah, you'll hear these called angel doors, tied to some story about second-floor porches on pioneer homes. Same thing again. A porch that came off, a door that stayed. The name changes state to state. The cause barely does. Every region invented a local legend for the same plain carpentry. So here's the part that got to me, which raises a different, dumber question. If each door had a real reason, why do so many turn up on houses that never had a porch, never had a stair, never had a plan for a wing? And the answer's almost worse than a ghost. Builders copied. In the 1800s, houses went up from pattern books, printed catalogs of house plans you could order and hand to a local carpenter. Andrew Jackson Downing, whose 1850 book, The Architecture of Country Houses, shipped plans to families who'd never met an architect, sold this idea to thousands of homes at once. If the plan drawing showed a second-floor door, the carpenter built a second-floor door, whether your specific house needed one or not. Which means, for a huge share of these doors, nobody decided anything. No owner, no architect, no single afternoon where a person chose to install a door into thin air. A carpenter in Ohio copied a drawing. The drawing came from a book. The book copied a house that did have a porch 3 states away 20 years earlier. The reason fell out at every step, but the door kept getting reproduced. A habit passed hand to hand like a rumor made of wood. Your door's not a decision. It's a photocopy of a porch that rotted off a house you'll never see. That's what these really are. Architectural fossils. A door is cheap to frame and a pain to rip out, so it survives every renovation that erases the thing it was for. The porch goes, the stairs go. The tenant, the wing, the wagon, the hill, all of it gets erased or forgotten. The door's the one part too much trouble to bother deleting. So it stays, pointing at a missing floor, waiting for you to walk past and not ask. So who decided your house needed a door that goes nowhere? Nobody did. That's the whole answer. A porch rotted, a stair came down, a builder copied a book, a hillside got regraded, and 130 years of small, forgettable choices stacked up into one door hanging over your lawn. You do the same thing every single day. You keep the leftover because deleting it is more work than living with it. Every old house is a pile of abandoned intentions nobody got around to erasing. And you've walked past yours your whole life without a second look. Now you know. Sorry.